Good evening, everyone. Welcome to SJS Writes panel discussion featuring children and youth authors. I'm Shawnee Smith, founder of SJS Writes, and I am delighted to introduce to you our incredibly accomplished panelists who kindly answered my request to share what inspired them to become authors and their mission to impact children and/or youth. And we'll start with the introduction of our first panelists. And I will share my screen. Our first panelist is Doris Siu. Doris is a Canadian best-selling author and editor based in Toronto with a passion for harnessing the beauty of words with music. What makes Doris's books unique is that they are all accompanied with music, thanks to collaborations with international artists. She is the author of Hold On Please, Emily, an inspirational young adult novel that features her song lyrics and tells the story of an inspiring musician who is challenged by a cancer diagnosis. Doris's latest release is a quote book entitled Wise Up, Stand Up, which shares 101 life lessons, reminding us that our words can speak louder than our actions if we use them wisely. Visit dorissiu.com to learn more about her books, music, and creative interest.
Babe.
Our second panelist is Dr. Yvonne Johnson. Dr. Johnson is a graduate of Clark Atlanta University, where she earned a Bachelor's of Arts in History. After matriculation at Clark Atlanta University, she obtained a Master's of Arts in Teaching and Special Education, K through 12, from the University of Memphis, and a PhD in Curriculum and Instruction from Capella University. She currently serves as a special education advisor with Shelby County Schools in the Division of Exceptional Children, where she supervises special education classes at several schools. Dr. Johnson is co-author of The Ride of Pride, a children's book that tells the story of African-American inventors and how we use their inventions daily. In addition, she is the author of Manifested Dreams, which depicts the journey of an African-American family through slavery to an allegedly post-racist American society. Dr. Johnson is a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority, Incorporated, and Phi Delta Kappa, Incorporated, and she volunteers with several organizations in the Memphis, Tennessee community.
Wow.
Our third panelist is Mr. Ian Parks. Ian is a military veteran who has served 5 years in the United States Air Force. While fighting for his country, Ian jumped into information technology field, becoming a systems administrator. Ian still makes time to work with teenagers within his community. Ian has worked with the Boys and Girls Club, Habitat for Humanity, Big Brothers and Big Sisters, along with several other nonprofit organizations, and is involved with youth development. With 15 plus years experience working with teenagers in the community, Ian has not only started his own nonprofit, After School Special, but has also recently released his first book, Gap Year, to continue serving teenagers who want to reach their full potential in life. Our fourth panelist is Dr. Sonya Johnson. Dr. Sonya Johnson is the co-author of the children's book, The Ride of Pride. She has worked over 18 years as an educator. She earned a Bachelor's of Science in Chemistry from Clark Atlanta University, a Master's of Arts in Curriculum and Instruction from the University of Memphis, and a PhD in Curriculum and Instruction from Capella University. She believes in living by both of Clark Atlanta University's mottos, "I'll find a way or make one," and "Culture for Service." Last but not least, our fifth panelist is Violet Lemay. Violet has illustrated 44 books, 6 of which she also wrote. Her latest, Let's Be Friends, published by Harper Festival in 2021, won BookFest's First Place Award for Diversity in Children's Books. Thank you. Thank you to all our panelists. Now we shall begin with the questions. And I'll share my screen. And the first question is, who or what inspired you to become a writer? And the sub-question, who or what influenced you to write children and or books for youth? And we will start with Dr. Yvonne Johnson.
So what inspired me, it wasn't necessarily who, but what inspired me to write children's books was just the need to educate students about different types of history that they weren't aware of. When I was in the classroom during Black History Month, I would ask my students to research different Black inventors and then create the invention, and we would display that outside. So I was amazed on how little the students knew about different inventions or who invented those inventions. So my purpose of just writing children's books was basically to inform people about information they did not know anything about.
Thank you for answering the call of really informing the students. Doris, what are your thoughts?
Well, for me, the reason why I got into writing was mainly because as a child, I've been like a major reader. I really enjoyed reading books, but there's always books that I couldn't find in the library. There's a whole bunch of stories where I read and I'll write alternate endings instead. And it was that motivation of knowing that there could be this story that's missing out there that I wanted to share with others. But I always saw it as a hobby until more recently, pretty much like 10 years ago, when I started becoming a professional editor. And then that's when it kind of opened my eyes working with clients that you can actually make a career out of writing. And that's when I realized more recently that, you know, maybe I should just try it out. And I see all the people that are, you know, they're just so happy and passionate about it, being able to share their stories with others. And I wanted to experience those feelings and also create the stories that I couldn't write. Well, I couldn't read, and basically write them for other people to read. And that's kind of why I ended up writing for youth, because it was my childhood experience of not having those stories.
Definitely, it's always good to share your experience because you never know who can identify with it. Violet, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think I first was inspired to write by a children's book course I took in grad school, children's book illustration course, where we had to write our own books. And then many, many years later, when I had my son, I had been working as an editorial editor for adult projects for magazines and newspapers, that kind of thing. But then when I had my son and we invited all these new books into our home, I just loved the book so much and switched gears and started illustrating children's books. And then actually it was an editor who inspired me to start writing. He tasked me with it, actually. He took me to lunch and said, I just want to find out what makes you tick, and let's make it into a book. And that's what started the whole thing off. But for my most recent books, what has inspired me to write is just sad things I see in the world. And for me, at least lately, for my books, especially for small kids, because I write for older kids too, but I write books that I hope will make children feel cherished and loved and appreciated, no matter who they are, what their background is, all that. So that's it for me.
That's an important mission, because there's so many kids that feel neglected and left out. Thank you for sharing. Sonya, what are your thoughts?
Well, for this one particular book, our father kind of pushed us to do to write the book. But I can truly say, as a teacher, we used to have a lot of different reading programs, because of course, nationwide there is a need for literacy and numeracy. So we used to have this thing called Stop, Drop, and Read, and it was interesting to see how my students wouldn't want to read certain books. So I took it upon myself to try to find be interested in. So it might have been not the type of books of course, it wasn't the Romeo Juliets. It wasn't those things that were the classics, but I found things that were interesting or parallel to their lives. So I wanted to figure out ways to make them interested in reading. So I guess for me, I wanted to find something they could relate to, and something they can make it like, oh, I know something like that. I see this every day, to make it something they can relate and make them draw interest into it. Because of course, everything we read, not even as adults, or something we are just drawn to, something especially like for work, but want something special to get them to have that yearning for reading or want to read, is kind of draw them in and capture their attention. So I guess that's what kind of pushed me, was my own students seeing what they were interested in.
It is good motivation, just knowing your audience and then tailoring your work towards writing to them. Ian, what are your thoughts?
I actually love this question, because I like to say nobody, honestly. Because for me, writing a book was never in the cards. It was something that got planted. And the story goes, I was actually catching up with a teacher that I had a great relationship with, just catching her up on everything I had going on, especially in the summertime. And she just stops me in the middle of my story, and she says, you know what you need to do? And I was like, what? She said, you need to write a book. I was like, write a book? Why? And she said, because that book might be able to open up more doors for you than you can open up for yourself. So I thought about it, and I even asked a couple friends about it, and they actually agreed with her, and I still kept pushing it off. But my inspiration is always high school teenagers. And at the time, there was something I wanted to research, and I just combined that with the book, and it just worked out for me. And I've been getting a lot of great just responses from it, from parents and students. So that's how it happened for me.
Nice. All right, we can move on to the next question, and I'll share my screen. So children and youth authors often inspired to write books that inform, engage, and inspire their audience. As an author, what are your goals for writing for children and/or youth? And we'll start with Doris.
Well, I feel that as an author, we're in a position where we can influence others with our words. And I published 2 books. So one of them was a young adult book, and the more recent one was a quote book. But both of them are actually very different, even though they can be both appropriate for a youth audience. And I feel that the reason why they're different is because the purpose is different. So whenever I start any project, I always think to myself, what is this purpose? Is it to educate? Is it to inspire? So I need to kind of take a step back before I start doing all the brainstorming and have that in mind, because depending on the purpose will depend on the length, the tone, right? Everything changes. And so when it comes to youth writing, though, I feel that there's an extra step. So that extra step is the fact that we not only need to have a purpose, whether it's to educate or to entertain or whatnot, but also to show the youth the true value of literature. And I feel that our goal, like our main goal and purpose as youth authors is this, because we want to show them that this literature, right, is, we want to instill that passion for reading, right? And when it comes to writing, like when I did my first book, Hold On Please Emily, I did exactly that. I went and created a story where when you read it, you connect with the main character, right? You'll basically build with them and be inspired by their journey, wanting to follow your dreams and wanting to kind of push above yourself when you're faced with challenges. And my hope is that as you read through the pages of the book, you'll become inspired, if not to follow your own dreams, then to at least be inspired to pick up another book that is similar. So inspiration, I really feel, is the main key, the main goal for us as youth authors. And that's our main purpose when we write.
Thank you. Very well said, Doris. Sonya, what are your thoughts?
For me, I think entertainment is great, but I want the books that I author to educate and inspire. Of course, I want them to be knowledgeable, to learn information and facts about themselves, people around them, etc. But I also want them to get so lost in the story where they were like, I can do this. This could be me. Somebody could be writing about me one day. So I definitely want them to get to the point where, or even if it's something like learn about some information like, oh, I want to go there. Oh, I want to experience this. I want to learn more about this. Let me do some research. So whatever it does, I want them to just, I believe in those light bulbs off. So whatever it makes them do is like, you know what? If they could do it, I can do it, or I can do it better. Like, I think about, I had a scholar that was interacting with one time, and he wanted to be a rapper. He was like, I don't want to go to school. I don't want to do. I said, that's interesting that you say that. I pulled off a book off the shelf about Ice Cube. I said, do you realize his parents were professors? They pushed him to get education. I said, so let's read this book. So he just knew somebody who was a part of NWA. But the more and more he read, he was like, oh, he actually went to school. He's more educated than people think. So it inspires them to like, you know what, there's more about this person that I didn't know. So I want to make them have that sparkle, like, oh, I didn't know that. So that's what makes me want to have that, like the little head turn, like. So that's if I can get somebody to do this or that, I'm happy.
Nice. Just relatable inspiration. That's what I call that. Ian, what are your thoughts?
I think for me, I was seeing like a growing trend. So my goal was to kind of create like a little self-help guide on things that you should do. And also, I feel like a lot of high school students don't really get catered to in the book department as well, too. So I also got some more, I would say, stories that I tell within my book as well, too. That's even outside of the things that you should do if you're taking a gap year, pretty much. I talk about life skills in this book. I also talk about mental health as well in this book, too. So my ultimate goal really was to kind of plant the seed on not being lost if you do take this quote unquote gap year. Because as we know, kids are trendy and they're up on change. And I didn't want that to be a growing trend in the negative direction and you just not do nothing. And for me personally, it was also a research project for myself that I wanted to kind of just educate myself on too. So this book even helped me and gave me more knowledge and insight as I wrote it.
It's always good to have a mutual exchange when you're writing a book. You benefit and the reader benefits. Yvonne, what are your thoughts?
My purpose was to definitely inform and also inspire. when I wrote Manifested Dreams, I actually started about 2016, 17. So I didn't complete it until 2020. But what motivated me to complete the book is because I noticed how history repeats itself. We didn't know anything about Spanish flu until COVID came. So just noticing some of the historical events that I wrote about in my book were similar to either events that I experienced personally, in my life. So I just wanted to inform students about, or just people in general, about different historical events that you may not hear about in school.
Definitely, because you can only cover so much in the classroom. Violet, your thoughts?
First of all, your answers are all so inspiring. You are all just wonderful. I answered this a little bit already. I write to help children feel loved and accepted. But when I think about answering this question, I remember when my son was very small, we would read every night, and we would read and read and read. And he would just beg me to read books over and over again. And it was such a precious time and such a fleeting time, they grow out of it. And for little kids, I want to write books that draw both the parent and the child in together and just help them feel cozy and loved. And maybe it is just entertainment sometimes, because I think it's great to have books that are just funny and fun for little kids too. Who doesn't love to make a little kid laugh? But also more seriously, yes, I write books for sure that help kids feel loved. And as my son grew through those awkward teenage years and beyond, it just brought my whole middle school and high school experience back to me. And when I'm writing for older kids, I want to tell stories that are fun, like I just love being lost in a book. So I want to write books like that for young people, so that they just can't put that book down. But within the story, characters deal with issues that they might be dealing with in their own lives, and they learn how to handle things better, how to handle anxiety better, how to make friends, how to face typical challenges that kids face, just to help them out. I want to write the kind of books that I wish my son had read when he was young, that maybe would have helped him out and help him get through school. So that's it for me.
Sure. Thank you so much for sharing that, Violet. Move on to our next question. So children and youth genres often have misconceptions that include writing for children and youth is easy because you're just telling a story, short stories. The story should always teach a lesson. Well, if my friends and family and students love my story, everyone else will too. How do you, as an author, dispel these misconceptions? We'll start with Ian.
For me, it was just telling true and real stories. One thing that I always hear from teenagers is the school system don't really prepare you for life, and they feel like they're not learning enough. So what better way to not only connect with students or just to connect with readers than just telling real stories about yourself? Because for the audience, I think it will not only create like a deeper sense of connection, but also let them know like, dang, this person went through some ups and downs, dating all the way back to his high school years. And he's even now to this day still working with high school students. Like things kind of just came full circle, and he's an author. Like who would have saw that coming through learning some of these stories? So it's kind of how it kind of for me happened.
Nice. Sonya, what are your thoughts?
I have to say one of those bullets that I have to say I have to dispel is if my family friends love it, everyone else will, because a lot of times it's basically trying to figure out the marketing to how to, even if we feel like, oh my gosh, everybody's like, oh, it's great, but are you going to buy it though? So it's just trying to making sure that you market to the right audience, making sure your sales pitch is on point, and just kind of figure out how, especially with the target audience that we have, how can you encourage them, even though it's great information, once they actually buy it, they say they love it, but just get that, hey, take my book, purchase it so you can read it. So just that part of it. So yeah.
Definitely know your audience and market to them. That's important. Violet, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, following up on that. Well, this is my job, and I have to sell books to make money for myself to live. So it really doesn't matter who in my life likes that book or doesn't like it or whatever. I have a representative, my agent. She's my, business partner. First, it's her. I have to make sure she likes it. So she's like my gatekeeper. Generally, she does. Sometimes she offers advice and we go back and forth a little bit. Then she has to try to sell the book to publishers. And that is no mean feat. That is a tricky, tricky business. Book publishing is extraordinarily competitive. And there are so many talented people out there. And it also just, each publisher is looking for something different. They put together a list for each season with very specific, like a wish list, what they want on it. And they're, your book has to fit within all the other ones they're doing. It's just so hard to get a book published. I've written 10 or 20 times more books than have been published. They're all just out there floating around looking for a home, but there's nothing about it that's easy. And the writing part too, I want to dispel that. It is not easy to write a good picture book. That is an art form all on its own. Picture books, text needs to coexist with the art and they support each other. So the text doesn't tell the complete story. In the best case scenario, the text holds back and lets the art tell part of the story. That's tricky to figure out and, takes a lot of skill all the way through. It took me an entire year to write a young adult novel that is still being edited and all that. There's nothing easy about writing at all. I think a lot of times people think the lifestyle looks really glamorous and everyone wants to try it, but they're more attracted to the actual lifestyle than the doing of it, because the doing of it is kind of I love it. So to me, it's not a grind, but it's a 9-to-5 job every day. I'm always, always, always working. I rarely take a day off because I have to hustle to make my living.
Thanks for that, sharing those insights. Doris, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think everyone kind of touched upon making it relatable, right? Having the illustrations, right? Having it match with the story. You're right. It really is an art. And, even just the marketing aspect as well, right? Making sure you market it to the right people. Those are things that I completely agree with. And you're right, it's not easy at all. When I wrote my young adult book, it took me 2 years to write. And because I chose a topic that was realistic, that's the reason why I chose realistic fiction, was because I didn't want people to think everything, particularly with my topic of cancer, was always portrayed as something that is bad, we all know, but they just kind of gloss over it in movies and in shows. Very few books actually dive into it in a medium that is, entertaining in the sense that you build a fictional story on it, but also it's educational as well. And I really wanted to kind of, step aside from all that, fake stuff that people say about cancer. And, I interviewed a bunch of people with brain cancer. I talked with the main foundation in Canada, Brain Tumor Foundation of Canada, to connect with, patients and with people and kind of really know what goes on with the patients and the families in order to write a story that was relatable to someone. And if they didn't know, then it's going to make them empathetic, right? So then they can relate in that sense. So you're right, it's not easy at all. There's a lot of things that, people don't realize. They just see the final product and, they look at it and they go like, that's it, right? but there's so much that goes behind it. And until you're actually there and doing it yourself, then it makes you appreciate things a lot more, because children think differently as well, right? And to write a story that connects with them, you have to know kind of the mentality, right? How they absorb information. And because there's less words, then you kind of can't be arm wavy. You have to be more selective with how you write as well. So lots of things to consider.
It's true. Yeah, research is key in order to make the story, whatever you're telling, believable as well as relatable. Yvonne, what are your thoughts?
As everyone stated, it's definitely not easy. I think I said in one of the earlier questions, it took me either 3 or 4 years to complete Manifested Dreams because it's a historical fiction. So I wanted to make sure every detail was correct. And as Doris said before, when you write, well, it started off as a children's book, but based on the information, I wasn't sure if it was relatable to children. So I kind of left it open. But I did have several characters in the story who are children, and I wanted to try to create a character where that age group will be able to relate to that, because I also discussed the integration of Memphis City Schools, which was a group of 13 first graders. So I researched what they experienced, and I tried to put myself in a first grade mindset and how they would be able to relate, and deal with, integrating a school for the first time, especially being so young, and to kind of put a spin on the last statement. If my family and friends like it, then everyone would like it. So that was our biggest struggle with the Ride of Pride. It was hard for your own, I was like, oh, my friends will purchase a book, and for them not to really buy in, that discouraged me personally. And I kind of gave up on marketing until somebody was like, you're going to hear a lot of no's. So we re-released the book in 2017 and made a few changes. So I just really tried to be creative on how I market the book and reached out to whoever I could to try to get the word out there. The same with Manifested Dreams. So it's definitely not easy.
So definitely trial and error. Thank you for sharing. Let's see, we'll move on to the fourth question. And some people believe social media negatively impacts children and youth literacy due to using emojis and use of other abbreviations during online chatting. Do you think social media enhances or hinders literacy among children and or youth? Or do you think the use of social media helps promote literacy? And we'll start off the discussion with Sonya.
Yes, thank you, because I was ready for that one. So, currently, I'm an administrator in a 612 school, so I see how our students are still using text language to talk. So they write like they talk. So we're trying to break that barrier. Like, no, let's use complete sentences. This is how you write a paragraph. And we're struggling because when they're switching back to this is how I text. IDK, no, spell it, write it out. And like I said, these are 6th through 12th graders. So we're just trying to break that. And I think social media it's a lot of problems across the board, but I know we're keeping it with reading. But I do think it hinders, and I wish more people would use that platform to promote literacy, to promote positive images, to promote their things, because that's what they do. That's what the youth think they gravitate towards. So it could be used as a positive platform if the right people use it for that. Music can be used to promote positivity. There's so many avenues that our young people gravitate for that I've seen it being done. think more people need to do it. So yes, I do think it has its negative stigmas on writing and reading, but I definitely think it's a window of opportunity for it to be used in a positive light. So
thank you for sharing. Ian, what are your thoughts?
Ooh, this is a deep one. Let me start out by saying this. I think it does hinder it. That's just a fact. But I think it's technology as a whole. I know we like single out social media, but I think social media has a bigger effect on social skills versus just the reading. And the reason why I say technology as a whole is because it's statistically been proven that the more you read online or using like any type of technology device, the less information you retain versus reading like a physical book in your hand. So knowing those facts and even testing it out on students that I work with, I see it all the time. So when people kind of see those signs, I don't want them to think that it's just social media as a whole. It's kind of like technology altogether. However they're like consuming their information or whatnot, and also teenagers too. That's a group of group of kids that I work with. They just want things in just short and sweet, and that's what social media does to them.
Yeah, attention span. That's what I'm hearing now. Shortens it. Doris, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think the points that were brought up, I completely agree. Without a doubt, social media technology, right? It's what is affecting youth today for their literacy. But for me, being an editor, I really feel that it's the writing aspect that is being affected more. Because when it comes to writing, a lot of them, as it's been said, right, are using abbreviations when they write or writing sentences without substance. So it's like very brief sentences. And the one that I notice the most is that because nowadays, especially, there's some places that still do virtual school, or they do like a hybrid system where they actually type their assignments on the computer in the classroom. And because of that, they are so reliant on autocorrect. And there's no urgency to learn how to spell anymore. And I find that a lot of the youth nowadays, they kind of gloss over spelling because they basically rely that the computer will be able to fix it for them if they spell it incorrectly. So for me, I find that that's the biggest issue in terms of literacy for technology use, social media, in that sense. But, there's always a positive spin for everything. And you're right, if we use it to promote literacy, then that's completely different. Like for me, whenever I do any marketing, I turn to social media. Like for authors, it's like free, right? It's a free way to market our books. And if we target the right hashtags and communities, right, then we are able to get it in front of them and get that additional exposure. So when it comes to social media, like I've been using book trailers, like they're really in now. And I do that for all my releases to entice them. And because I have music involved as well, then I have the music in the background that, was created with myself and the collaborators. And we tie it in with the book and we create this kind of visual effect there that the, teens can gravitate to and go like, hey, this is cool. I want to read it. Because that's the thing, right? We want people to read our work, but also we want you to feel that reading is cool. And a lot of people think reading is not cool, right? So by getting them to read, right, read more, then that would essentially improve their writing as well.
Definitely, social media is a useful tool for writers and can be for students as well. Yvonne, what are your thoughts?
Well, of course, everything everyone said here is fascinating and correct. I'm no expert on this, but I have a look at the bright side personality. And one thing I will say about this is I'm amazed at how young people use emojis and text to communicate. I mean, truly, it's like a new art form, I think. My husband works at a school here in Malaysia. We live on campus. It's a boarding school. And I follow a lot of the kids on Instagram. And when I see what they write, I study it. I'm like, how did you do that? I don't even understand how they know all the emojis and just the way they use them. I think it's cool. I'm sorry that all of this is inhibiting their appreciation of language and perhaps their growth and development that way, for sure. I think one way we can use social media and even our own art of writing and books to entice kids is just to show people reading. I've illustrated 2 books about books. One is Library Babies and one is Bookstore Babies, and they're so cute. And another thing about children's writing is that kids read books because parents read to them. I think they say it's around 3rd grade where kids start deciding whether or not they're going to read on their own. That's when they start maybe getting into chapter books and all that kind of thing. Anyway, just good knowledge to hold on to there. I think it's important to entice parents to read to their kids so that those habits are established early. And it's not just reaching kids through social media, but reaching parents also. So I don't know, I have an Instagram post that's very active, and I'm always promoting literacy. I'm constantly promoting books, and all the people I follow are authors and illustrators. They all do the same thing. We're all putting it out there. I think it's a matter of educating yourself to be a wise marketer and knowing what hashtags to use and all of that. But images are important, and I think they say social posts on any platform that have an image are like 100 times more visible, they get more traction than just words. So always include a picture, reading, always show books, always show people reading, having fun with books, just to make it look, I think what you want to do is make the kids feel left out. Like, oh, it looks like so much fun. I wish I was doing that. Mm-hmm. So you just have to make it look really fun and cool. That's what I got.
Thank you. Yvonne, what are your thoughts?
I think social media, as Violet and Doris stated, can be beneficial as far as introducing the parents to different types of books, and therefore they would introduce their children. It's helped me get exposed to a lot of different events through social media, such as the event we participated in last week. I wouldn't have known anything about it unless, I was following him on social media. So I think it's beneficial as a secondary influence, like the parents are introduced to that. Therefore, they'll take their children to the event or purchase a book of something they found on social media.
Nice. Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing. And we'll go on to the 5th question. As we've touched on a little bit in the previous question, encouraging children and youth to read can really be challenging for parents. What advice would you give parents to encourage reading in their households? We can start this question with Violet.
Well, I think the best way to encourage your kids to read is to read yourself. Always, from the time they're little. If they see you reading, how your little kids, they just want to be like you. So even before they can read, they'll probably pretend to read if they see you reading. And I think it's just like following up on what I just said. The more you can make what you're doing look really engaging and fun, it's just going to be enticing, and then they'll want to follow suit. And if you talk about books, they're going to want to be involved in those conversations. That's why there are book groups, because people love their books so much. They just want somebody to talk about it with. And I love reading so much. It just hurts me to hear that maybe kids aren't reading. I think a great way to encourage reading in your home is to talk about books at dinner, read at night with your kids, maybe turn off the TV for half an hour, everybody reads, and then you say, what were you reading? How's it going? I loved this one, maybe try this one, just make it a part of your life. And then it'll just hopefully become a habit that young people carry on.
Lifestyle choice. Doris, what are your thoughts?
I definitely agree with Violet. I actually wrote, I published an article on Medium recently, speaking about just reading in general and why it's important for us to encourage youth to read more. And, I find that nowadays, it's really hard to show reading as something attractive, right? Because we have video games, and even just like going outside, right? So because of that, we need to find ways to motivate kids. And you're right. The biggest thing is we as parents, or even as educators, like we need to set a very good example, right? And so I find that if we come in and we end up discussing about maybe a book that we read that we really enjoyed, they see that glimmer in our eye, right? That passion. Even like today, all of us talking about books, you could tell very passionate people about reading and books, literacy. It shows, right? You can't hide that. It's contagious. So the more that we talk about it with kids, right, whether they're our students or our own children, right, then it's going to rub off on them. They may not actually read the book that you suggested them to read, but they make them as excited about reading, right? And so for me, it's really just that, finding that, that avenue to connect with them and share that passion with them. And that is essentially what's going to get them reading.
Excellent thoughts. Yvonne, what's your perspective?
I feel like you should start reading to your child at birth and have that expectation. Okay, every night I'm gonna read to you. And as they get older, require purposeful reading to let them, provide a book report. It doesn't have to be long, just as, and it improves comprehension skills. So that's what I feel will influence a child or promote reading in the household.
Thank you. Ian, your thoughts?
I agree with what everybody said. I think it starts with you as the parent. You definitely got to model that. You definitely got to start reading from birth just to get them interested. And also, too, when kids are in their early stages of life, they definitely model their parents. And then as they get older, they still model them, and they're still out a little time to time, but they actually learn more from their peers when they start hitting their teenage years as well, too. So I think if you just start planting that seed early, that would definitely show out long term. Because with me, I was kind of like the opposite. I wasn't really into reading until my later years as I got older, and I know I missed out on a lot. So if I could do it all over again, I would definitely start reading at an earlier age.
Nice perspective. Sonya, what are your thoughts?
Just to kind of, I agree with everyone what everyone said. I'm sorry, but for me, I say start reading in the womb. Like, get the book. They can't see the images, but you can describe them. My sister can tell you I'm very animated. If I'm reading to you, I'm putting a lot of, oh my God, what you think is going to happen next? Like, oh, what's going to happen? What, so I'm very animated. So my hate it. They're teenagers, they hate it, but I'm very animated. But just to get them in it, and my God kids will tell you from birth, they got books for me. They just started getting toys for me. And even then it was science kids. So even they're still, no, we're learning here. So they got books, and even the books that I purchased for them, there were books with them as there's these personalized books where you can get them to be the character. So they just add their names. So they're reading their names. They're like, Ava did this, Christian did this, Christian science. It's like, yeah, mommy, I could be a scientist. So they want to read the adventures that the book said they were going to go on, or made them, so I got personalized them for them to be the characters. So that made them want to know what adventures they were going on throughout the book. So just making it personal, making this, like you said, model, making them excited, just even if you like, okay, I don't really want to read this, but let's read about the three bears today. What are the pigs going to do? They're like, yeah. So get them excited about it. So when they get to be adults like this and they have to read that 500 book page that for your job, they can be excited about it.
Nice. All right, now we're moving on to our last question. Looks like we lost Ian. Hopefully he's able to come back. And our final question is, what current or upcoming projects and or events would you like to share with the audience? We'll start with Yvonne.
We thought we had an event on Friday, but it looks like we don't have anything at this present time.
Oh,
But that's okay. I need to sleep.
You need to rest. All right, Doris, anything for you?
Yes, I recently celebrated my 60-day post-launch for my most recent book, Wise Up, Stand Up. So it's really exciting just seeing, a lot of people reading it, coming together, and it's accompanied with music as well. So seeing people stream the music and, just providing a lot of positive feedback. That's pretty awesome. So for me, I always release books that come with music. And the theory behind this is because I want people to have a complete reading experience. And especially with lo-fi music. Lo-fi music is instrumental music that is for studying or kind of like, soft beats. And I find it's very nice to listen to as an ambience when you're reading. So by connecting with different lo-fi artists in the community from across the globe to create music that really complements the content in my book, I think that adds to the whole experience. So I'm actually working on a couple newer projects that will be coming out hopefully later this year. I have a short stories project. I'm working with Andy Kwan, and he's from Australia. And we're doing short stories with a song as well that can accompany that story. And there's also a gratitude journal that's coming up, which will be released early next year. And that I'm doing with 4 collaborators, Nate to Time, also Andy Kwan again, Lupe, and 11. And if any of you guys check up these names, a lot of them, their bios are already on my website, dorissiu.com, if you're interested in their music. And, I really feel that music is something that can really kind of merge together with books. And I'm trying to push forward that with all my content.
Nice. Those sound like really exciting projects. Looking forward to hearing more about it in the future. Sonya, what are your thoughts?
I keep toying with the idea to start writing my next book. So I think I can sit down long enough to actually do it. So that's what it's not anything truly in the works, but I think I'm pushing myself more than getting it started.
Fantastic. Violet, any upcoming projects for you?
upcoming projects. Well, this is my current one. This is Let's Be Friends, which is the book that came out most recently. I'm always working on tons of stuff, but can't really talk about it yet. So can't do that. But anyway, all of your projects sound really cool. Doris, I can't wait to look up your website and find out about this music that accompanies books. That's fascinating. I'm going to check it out.
Nice. Ian, any upcoming projects or events you would like to promote?
I would say upcoming projects is really just me doing a gap year program locally at a couple high schools that I volunteer and try to help out at and try to be a resource. So this is something that I'm trying new and really building from the ground on up, and we'll just have to see how it goes. And as far as books wise, I know I got one more book in me, but I'm not gonna start that till probably about the end of 2023. So I won't still work on this first book. So would love to connect with everybody as well too. So.
Sounds good. All of our information will be distributed so we can stay in contact. I know we have a few audience members. We have like maybe 2 to 3 minutes if any audience has any questions for the panelists. All right, hearing none. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you
for coming on.
Thank you.
Being panelists. Really enjoyed the conversation.
It was awesome. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And I hope you all have a good evening and a good weekend.
And me too. Good night.
Thanks, Shannon.
Thank you.
Bye. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.